Hi all, my name's Anna and I'm the C5 nut. That's not a C5. What the hell? Something's not right. Yeah. Well, this is a funny looking C5. Oh my days. No, Toyotas are not allowed in the workshop. Go on, leave the workshop with your big ass tyres and new brakes and a so-called 2-inch lift kit. Go on, out the door. Now that's much better. Yes, we have got my pride and joy C5 in the workshop. Now, I'm still suffering with my voice. Yes, I've got to go doctors soon. And this has been going on for the last 3-4 weeks. So, yeah. How badly damaged my voice is, I really don't know. To some of you might think, well, that's a blessing. But, yeah, well, we will adapt regards to what happens with my voice. So anyway, so today's video is working on Princess. We got she's due her time. Well, she's due her MOT in about a week's time, and we've got a lot of engine work to do. We've got to get a major service done on it. And that includes diesel filter and air filter and timing belt, water pump. It's having a lot of work done to this car. Now, you're probably thinking, well, is it worth it? Well, to me it is. You know, I bought this car from a friend of mine, and 2 weeks after for me buying the car, he sadly passed away of prostate cancer. So for, this car is sentimental to me. It's the first ever C5. I fell in love with it. In all fairness, it's what gave me the love for the C5. So if it wasn't for this car, the channel wouldn't exist. It'll be something completely different. But yeah. This, I've got a couple of rallies that I want to do this year, so some car shows. Now, the National is the one you want to go for. The National for this year, Citroen are getting involved, which means, and it's about time that these cars get some sort of recognition. I know that a lot of people didn't like the the GSs and things like that. And now, a couple of years down the road, a lot of people want them. So even though the C5 at the moment is like a Marmite car, a lot of people are inquiring about buying second-hand Mark 1 units. And these cars are going up in value. So, yeah, if you see a C5 Mark 1, grab it pretty quick because the prices are going up. So, I think first things first is let's open the bonnet and see what we've got to work with. Now, I've only literally just brought this car in. It is soaking wet. Yeah, bless it. Now, this car has been off the road for about a year. It was in my storage. You possibly noticed that there's a bit of a colour indifference with the wing and the driver's door. Yeah, it's a slight notice there on the camera. Now, a couple of years ago, me working on motorhomes, I have a habit of leaving it in gear with a handbrake on. I had a bit of a chew-in from the boss because he didn't double check that the van was out of gear. He switched the engine on and the motorhome shot forward. Now, that was down on him really, not me, but I had a bit of a chew-in, and their policy was leave it out of gear. Now, on this particular day that I had the chew-in, it was a really hot day, and I went to see a friend of mine just to unwind after a busy day. Well, basically a crap day of work. And unfortunately, he lives on a hill. I left it out of gear. I had the handbrake on, and because the handbrake was on the front, I came at the house about half an hour later thinking, where's my car gone? And sure enough, it went down the road, and I would say about a quarter of a mile down the road, the road bears off to the left, and there was a house with like 2 bollards, and God knows how, but the car never hit any other car. It basically rolled down into someone's driveway and basically took out the driver's wing and the driver's door. Now, I did keep this little panel, and these are the scratches from that bloody bollard. The car just basically went. The following day, I went back into work, and I basically told the boss, I'm going to carry on doing what I have been doing, which is leaving the handbrake on. He didn't like that, but, what's more important? Some poxy guy that can't double check, make sure a vehicle's out of gear, or me and my pride and joy. Well, yeah. This car is everything to me, I've had it for 14 years, and I've been through thick and thin with this car. 2013, I nearly gave up on this car. It had an engine fault. I couldn't delete it. I've had everyone look at it around Plymouth. This is back in a day where I didn't know a lot about the electrical side of a C5. I was relying on others, and I ended up changing the engine. It had new sensors, new turbo, new intercooler. I spent nearly about £3,000. This is trade price. So if you were to take it like retail, you're looking about £4,500 of work that's gone into this car in 2013. And it still kept coming up with that same fault. I had the ECU tested out so many times. It even went to Citroen, and Citroen couldn't work out what was going on with it. As a last-ditch effort, I decided to buy a wiring loom, second-hand wiring loom. That was the only thing that I never changed on this car. 40 quid wiring loom. Plugged it in. Everything was working sweet as a nut. I couldn't believe it. I spent £3,000, and it turned out to be a 40 quid wiring loom. I was determined that after that, hence why I built, let's go in my office, hence why I built this, the Citroen wall of interestedness, because at some point, there might be another fault with her, but at least I'll be able to work out with that. It's that framework is designed to keep these cars on the road. You've got an electrical issue. Okay, let's see what it's doing. It's all about understanding this car. Now, I have learned, over a period of time, but yeah, like I said, this is the car that's basically made me see the love of the C5. This is a top of the range. It's a 2002 Citroen C5 Estate SE. It has cream leather seats. It has built-in sat-nav. It has all the toys in the world, including xenon lights. It's got all the toys that you could possibly ever want. I did tint out the windows, and obviously the roof, it comes as standard. including a bloody great big sunroof. You know, it's a nice big one. But back in 2002, I still got original paperwork. This was this was £34,000 car, which is kind of nuts. But yeah, you know, yeah, 14 years of ownership for a car that's 21 years old. It's kind of nuts. Right, so this is the diesel lump. This is a 2.2 HDI, what they call the 4HX engine. These engines, they are 50, again, it's a Marmite engine. You either love it or you hate it. Quite a lot of people hate these engines because they automatically assume that, you know, it will last, and, you know, at some point it will just suddenly fail and it goes to basically a lemon. My theory with these engines is, as long as you look after them, they look after you. Now, okay, 2013, for me with the wiring, that was different. That was an electrical issue rather than mechanical issue. Now, she has got a slight issue with the boost side of things. She's not boosting very well, and that's down to the diesel particulate filter. Now, it does have a 3-litre tank underneath the diesel tank, and it's called PAT fluid. I'm not entirely sure the technical word, but it's like an equivalent of AdBlue in modern day engines. Now, I have topped up the fluid on its max, but for some unknown reason, the computer seems to think it's empty, and every time we drive this car, the turbo just would not boost. Now, it's left me with a few options, and one of the options is to get it tuned up. This is 135 brake horsepower. If I was to get it tuned up, I'm looking at 170 brake horsepower just by adjusting the ECU. And that is the one thing I'm seriously thinking of doing with this car, is give it a little bit of a tweak, just to give me a little bit boost. Yeah. Now, this car has done 4,000 miles. I think it's 204,000. The engine hasn't done that. The engine, I think, has only done about 150,000. I think the engine that I put, well, this engine actually came from a Peugeot 406. Is it 406 or 407? Might be 407. Yeah, it was a 2.2, same engine, but it had automatic gearbox attached to it rather than a manual. But yeah, so today, yeah, we are going to be doing a time about. Now, it is quite late in the evening, as you can see. I was working on that truck earlier. I was doing some other bits and pieces. I don't normally work on other vehicles, mainly C5s or the little Fiat Cinquecento, but because it was a colleague of mine, I like to help and be part of a team and looking after our staff here at Abacus. So I was doing my bit just to help him out. So, and in exchange for that, well, that's already paid for me parts. No money changed hands whatsoever. You know, you do work for someone and they pay you in parts, and yeah, that works with me. Right, so I think I'm going to call it a night. Let's come back to this tomorrow morning. Right guys, so it is now the morning. It's very cloudy outside, but hey. Right, let's crack on and get the timing belt done. So I'm going to flip the camera around and I'll show you what we're going to do. Right guys, so as you can see, my beloved car. Now we need to get into this area here. So what you need to do, obviously there might be some clips that holds the plastic on. I've lost the clips. They disappeared many years ago. But that's not a problem because we have got new clips. So let's put that there. Right, just grab hold of this. This is, believe it or not, just clipped in as well. Now the engine back cover, there is 4 10mm bolts. There's one there, one about here, and another one on here. I'm going to take this cover off. That will then give us access to the timing belt area. We also need to remove this. Now there is a 10mm bolt just here. You want to undo 2 of these pipes, and there's a pipe literally right underneath which comes out, where are we, which comes out about here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. There you go. There's actually a third, well, the second pipe, and literally just goes in that way. Now I have got the under tray panels. They are up on the top there, but also what we need to do is we need to jack up the car. The car is set to high, that's why you've got a mighty gap. So what we need to do is jack the car up, put an axle stand underneath, take the wheel off, and then we can then take all the other bits and pieces off. So guys, I'm going to quickly do this, I'm going to quickly do this, I'm going to quickly do this, and I'll bring you straight back. Okay guys, so I've now taken the covers off. I'm now taking the coolant reservoir off. I will say it is quite filthy. Yeah, I think I'll be getting a new one of these. Need to order one for it. Right. There's that pipe I was telling you about. The coolant looks, well, what can you say? Coolant's been in there for some time. So, yeah. Now what we need to do is undo the auxiliary belt. Now there is a tensioner just here. See if I can zoom in a bit. There's a tensioner just here, and you're meant to pull it back, and that will then take the belt off. Yeah, the picture isn't really brilliant here. The floor is also kind of wet, so yeah. Also, we need to take these diesel pipes off. So they're literally 2 clips there, 2 clips down here. This will then take these 2 pipes off, which will give us access to the engine mount. And what I'll do is I'll quickly do these little bits and I'll bring it back. Okay guys, so I've now taken the auxiliary belt off. I've taken the diesel pipes off, which then gives us access to the engine bracket. So what we need to do is take the engine bracket off, which then enables us to then lower the engine down to take the timing belt covers off and things like that. Now there's a stabilizer type bracket. It's 16mm bolts. There's one there and there's one there that goes that way. We've got to take these 2 bolts out, and there's another bolt just down in the bottom there. We've got to take that out, and then 3 torque bolts. I think they're torque 50 or T50. I will confirm when I come to take these bolts out. But what we do need to do, obviously, the car is on an actual stand, so we're going to use the jack underneath the engine just to take the load off it while we take these brackets off. So guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly pause the video and I'll bring it back when I've taken the engine mounts off. Right guys, so I've now taken the engine mount off. I did take the bottom bracket off as well, only because I had a couple of issues with the actual the nut coming off. So I thought, well, while I'm here, I might as well pull it off and give it a good, decent clean. Now, the three bolts that were bolting the engine mount to the top of the engine, they are a T50. Obviously the nut was 16mm, and then obviously to take this bracket off the chassis rail, that was a T40. So yeah, I thought I'd just take them off, give them a bit of a clean, and the usual bits and pieces. Right, now the engine is on a jack. I did put some rag and stuff in between. It's just to protect the underneath of the sump. You can use a piece of wood, just you know, bearing in mind that obviously with the angles with a piece of wood, there's the chance if it may slip, but if you use a smaller piece of wood and it fits perfectly on the jack, then you're perfectly fine. Right, so now that the engine is on the jack, we can now move it up and down. So what we need to do is basically remove that crank pulley. I believe it's a 22mm, but I will confirm again. We also need to start removing the covers. Now let me just zoom in. So there's a bolt, hang on a second, there's a bolt just there, there's another bolt just there, there's one on the top, and I think that's it on that cover. Yep. Now on this cover again, there's one bolt there. Yeah, literally one bolt there. There's one bolt on the top, and there's one right down at the bottom that you go and do. Now some engines do have another bolt literally right down here somewhere. Obviously it's hard for me to get the camera down there. I can't remember off the top of my head if this engine has that bolt, but just bearing in mind, obviously if the covers don't come off, there's a chance there is another bolt back there. Right, so guys, I'm going to quickly pull the bottom pulley off and I'll let you know what size it is. Then I'm going to take all these covers off to expose the timing belt, and I'll bring you back. Okay guys, so I've now taken the bottom pulley off, which is that one there. It is a 22mm socket. It did take a while for it to come off, because bearing in mind the last time I even touched this area was about 10 years ago. Now there was a cover behind it with two bolts. The other two bolts were connected to the top covers. Now I have timed the engine, so basically there's like a little Woodworth key sort of gap. Let me see if I can focus, just on the corner here. Now I've actually put a bolt in there, and it does line up with a hole in the head. Now just for safety reasons, just in case that bolt ever comes out, you know, I've had this paint for so long. It's one of them touch-up paints for cars. Yeah, I use this quite a lot when I do timing belts. It basically just mark the one on the pulley and one on the side of the engine somewhere, so you know where it's roughly lined up. Now this pulley here, which is the high pressure diesel pump, I really wouldn't worry about it too much, to be honest, because I know some of the keyboard warriors will be like, oh, you need to time it up correctly. Well, in all fairness, diesel pump don't really need to, unless it's a like a roto diesel, then yes, you will need to time this pulley up. But because it's a common rail injection, you don't really need to time this pulley up at all. As long as the camshaft pulley and obviously the crankshaft pulley is lined up and marked, as you can see I've marked it there as well. Now because I've taken that pulley off and I wanted to use the original bolt to be able to turn the engine around, I just found a random nut that I had kicking around in the workshop, and the nut I'm just using as a spacer for it, replacing that. Yeah, the engine's timed up. What I'm going to do is slacken off the tensioner, which is back up here. Let's see if I can zoom in. Right, there is the tensioner. There we go. Yeah, there's the tensioner. Now it is a 13mm nut, so you should be able to slacken that off. The belt should then basically fall off. Now if you got it timed correctly, you shouldn't see really any movement on the timing belt side, but if you do, this is where your marks come into play, so you can actually see or confirm that the pulleys have moved. Now, just down below there, see about there, that is the water pump. See if I can zoom in. That there is the water pump. Now you can gain access from that by lowering the engine down. And, well, let's do that now. Right, let's lower the engine down. I'm trying to do this one-handed, which is never good. Not trying to sort of bloody jack out. Come on. Right, so we're going to lower that engine down a little bit. About there will do. Right. Now, as you can see, that there is a water pump. Now there is 5 bolts holding that water pump in place. I can't remember if it's 11mm or 10mm, but again, I will confirm with you once I've taken the belt off and also pulled the water pump off. Now I will say, when you do take the water pump off, there will be quite a lot of water behind it, because even though you drained the system down, there'll still be a bit of water in the engine block. So when you do take the water pump off, there will be a bit of water coming out, so bear that in mind when you do take the pump off. Right guys, let's crack on, let's get this pump off. Okay guys, so the timing belt is now off. Let's go back underneath. Now, I have removed the jack out the way just so I can get this big bucket in. Let's try and zoom in a little bit. Right, so the water pump I have taken off. It is 5 bolts, which are 11mm each. I've taken them off, and I've also taken off just where my torch is, just up there, that little post thing. That little posting there, that is the tensioner post. So what I need to do now really is give the area where the water pump is a nice good old clean. Also, we've got to change this pulley here and also the tensioner. Now these are idler wheels, and obviously the tensioner. Now you can get away of just like leaving it and use them again. Obviously you still got to change the water pump, but I will say, because these pulleys are about 10 years old, I'd rather just get them changed anyway. So I've got a nice new one to go in its place. Now you can buy the timing belt kit. It will come with the water pump as well as the timing belt, all the pulleys that your engine requires, including new bolts. Now the bolts that do come with the kit is mainly for the tensioner. Obviously, if you use an old bolt on the tensioner, there's a high chance it may either get weak or it may snap. Now obviously we like to do things, well, this is my car, it's not anyone else's, so I want to make sure that what I do is where it needs to be. So yeah, even though, like I said, these pulleys are good, I'm not going to chance it. I'm going to just replace it. The rule of thumb with timing belt things is if in doubt, just replace it. I mean, for the sake of a part that will cost what, 30-40 quid, compared with having to rebuild an engine, which could be thousands. So yeah, you guys do the maths. I know which way I'm going to go. Right guys, I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to clean this up, and I will insert the new water pump and change the pulleys, and I'll bring you back. Right guys, so where we're at, so new water pump, new idler pulley, new tensioner. Yeah. Now I have a little trick. Now the water pump normally comes with a sort of like a a gasket which is normally made out of like cardboard. I tend to smear a tiny bit of grease over it just to help better bonding. Also, I've used my drill with one of these copper brushes on the end of it. That's what I normally use for actually cleaning the face of the engine where the water pump is. So yeah, again guys, new idler, new water pump. We've got the tensioner which is above the water pump. I notice it is a bit oily and greasy around that area, so that's nothing new. I mean, it's a diesel, but yeah, I've got quite a bit of work ahead of me. There's a tiny bit of rust at the top there, which is where you can just about see it's got a hole in it. That's what's kind of worrying me at the moment. Not to mention about the brakes, they need a good old clean. So yeah, basically I've got a week to try and sort all these issues out, so it will go through its MOT. Right guys, also when you come to check the timing belt, if you take the old belt, sometimes if it's got the old numbers on, you should be able to read the old numbers and compare it with the new one. But if it is a belt that is slightly different make, doesn't necessarily have the right numbers on it. So what you need to do basically is you pull the timer belts like apart, and it roughly needs to like be the same length, or you can painstakingly count each tooth and go by that way. Well, I'm just going to do what I normally do, is pull them together and see which is the longest. But in theory, these should be the same size. If they are the same size, obviously chuck them on. There is a way that these bolts do go. Normally, the rule of thumb is where it says power grip, that would normally be like, so it's facing like this. So if you're standing on the driver's side looking at the engine, you should be able to read what it says on there. So that's a rule of thumb on which way around it goes. Sometimes manufacturers do put an arrow on belts, but this one hasn't got an arrow on it, so yeah. Again guys, just making sure that all the pulleys are lined up before you put the belt on. And once it is on, the tensioner, I won't go into too much detail with the tensioner, but yeah, once you've tightened it up, you need to do go around the engine twice, so physically turn it over twice, double check your marks. If the marks are perfect, then we can start rebuilding the engine. If they're not perfect, or you got a tooth out, then you've got to redo all the timing again and start again. Right guys, I'm going to hold the video here. I'm going to crack on. Let's get this job finished. Right guys, so all the plastic panels are back on the engine. I got a bit too carried away, you know, I just like listening to music, and I just got a bit overhead of myself. So I've already fitted the crank pulley, and while the engine's down low, I took the opportunity to then put the belt on for the auxiliary belt. It's so much easier doing it this way rather than doing it upwards. Right, so like I say guys, all the plastic panels are now back on. What I need to do is jack up the engine. I still need to sort out this mount, but what I'm going to do is obviously sort the mount out, make it all nice and clean and pretty. I'll fit it and then fit the other, basically one of these, the actual engine bracket back in. Again, that really could do with a bit of a clean. I'll try and do what I can to it. So yeah, what I'm going to do, I'll quickly put the main ones back in and I'll give you a bell back. I will say guys, history, yeah, if you like that sort of music, I do. I'm torn between history and Kiss and the 90s, but just as late, quite a good few songs come on, and I get carried away, and before you know it, most of it's all back together. So engine mount's all back in. Obviously there's the jack. I pulled the jack out. Really all I've got to do up this end is put the diesel pipes back on, which need to be clipped back in, put the header tank back on, and basically put the wheel back on, and then put some coolant in and run it up. Yeah, so a little bit of work to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly put the diesel pipes back on. I'm going to put the header tank back in, put the wheel back on, lower it down onto the floor so she's back on her wheels, and then I'll bring it back. Right guys, so she's back on her wheels. I still got to torque the wheels up. I put a tiny bit of coolant in there. I have noticed it is a bit manky looking, but we will do a flush over the next few days with this engine. So we're going to try and clean out as much crap there in the system. I've still left the covers off. Everything's all back minus the covers. I haven't actually physically turned this engine over yet, so I've just got to remember which one it is. It's that key. Joys of having so many cars. Right, now I've just got to pause the phone for a minute to switch off the Bluetooth, otherwise my Bluetooth unit will kick in. Okay guys, so I've literally just switched off the Bluetooth on my phone. I have got a parrot, which is there, and obviously that's what links my phone to the car. Now it is out of gear, the handbrake is off. I have not turned this over, so what you're going to hear is exactly what's going to come out. So right, I hate this bit. She starts and runs. I'm going to quickly put the doors up because it'll get pretty yeah. Well, right. Sounds all right. Actually sounds quite, yeah, quite good actually. Alright, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the car marginally outside, and then we're going to try and warm it up. And what we want is the engine to warm up to the point of the fans cut in, then we know it's not going to overheat. So being a diesel, that will take a while, so torque the wheel up, I take it outside, and we go from there. Alright guys, so it's been about half an hour, 45 minutes. It's taken a while for the engine to warm up, obviously being a diesel. We've got nice hot pipe at the top, we've got the bottom hose which is also nice and hot. It did take a while for all the air to come out. I mean, it's roughly where it needs to be. So what we're going to do now is, well, I'm just going to put the cap back on. I'm going to switch it off, leave it to cool down, and then I'm going to double check the cap. Now, some of you will probably say, well, why don't you just leave the cap off and then double check it? I kind of agree, but I have a habit of forgetting to put the cap back on. So I always like to put the cap back on, then when I do remember to go and check it once it's cold, the cap is still there. You'd be surprised the amount of times that caps get lost. So It's all nice and warm. Just going to switch that off. Yeah. Right, so now I'm going to let it cool down. I did torque up the front wheel, and she is set to high still. I need to lower her down. Bloody voice. Right. Right, guys. So let's walk up to the car. So I've now just put all the plastics back on. I'm going to leave her to cool down. While she's cooling down, I've got to sort all this mess out. Now, this bit here wasn't from the C5. Neither, well, that little bit was. But yeah, this was all done by that bloody, that Jeep thing that I had in last night. So, yeah, right. I'm going to sort the workshop out. As you can see, it is bloody filthy. And we like to try and keep our workshop clean as much as possible. Guys, well, as you can see, I'm covered in dirt, the usual stuff. I mean, jobs like this can be quite dirty, especially with a diesel. Diesels do like to leak a little bit, so yeah. I'm going to leave it here because my voice is killing me. Really, it's killing me. So if you like what you see, please give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And just may, at some point, I'll do another video. Take care. See you soon.